The Russians are still shelling cities in Ukraine today, with Mykolaiv in the south, one of the Kremlin's targets. The attacks come as Ukraine's NATO-led allies announce future deliveries of advanced air defense weapons to the government in Kyiv. The UK, Canada, France, and the Netherlands are promising missiles and radars. The US earlier made a similar pledge, and one high-tech system from Germany is already in Ukraine. Our chief correspondent, John Cookson, has the story.
NATO flexing its muscles, training exercises sending a clear signal to Moscow of the alliance's firepower in the wake of Putin's bombing blitz on Ukraine. For those concerned about a steady drift to all-out war, this caveat from the British Defence Minister.
What we don't want is to do things out of routine. This is a routine exercise and it's all about readiness. Today, the NATO meeting is all about making sure we are ready for anything. I mean, that is the job of this alliance, is to make sure that the 30 partners together are ready for what is thrown at us, and we have to continue work at that. And so exercising is part of that readiness.
But further intervention through NATO of more defence systems can't come soon enough for the people of Ukraine. This is Mykolaiv, a city not far from the front line in the south. Russian rockets slammed into an apartment block today. A miracle rescue there. An 11-year-old boy was pulled out alive from under tons of rubble. Once on a stretcher and on his way to hospital, a show of affection from his father. Desperate families in the devastated eastern Ukrainian city of Izium are receiving food packages and other aid as electricity, gas and running water remain cut off in the city following a long occupation by Russian forces. This hungry woman says, "We need food. We took bread because we have no bread. We have no money to buy it," she said. Thousands of miles away and after days of debate, UN General Assembly members, including Nigeria but not South Africa, voted overwhelmingly to condemn Russia's, in quotes, attempted illegal annexation of 4 Ukrainian regions.
L5 is adopted.
This UN member state has not only put its neighbor in its crosshairs, but also put a bullseye in this institution's core principle. One country cannot take the territory of another by force.
UN members demanded Moscow immediately reverse its actions, but Putin will not be complying. John Cookson, Arise News.
And Arise chief correspondent John Cookson joins us now from London for more. Good day, John. We'll go straight into it. Do we know what further assistance NATO will be giving Ukraine?
Yes, we do. Just to say that already Western nations, including NATO members, have given hundreds of billions of dollars worth of military aid since the war started back in February. But we're hearing today that the UK is going to give Ukraine 18 howitzer artillery guns, also sophisticated air defense missiles systems, and also hundreds of drones to monitor Russian troop movements on the ground. These drones can stay in the air for many hours and feed back vital intelligence to Ukrainian commanders on the ground. Other countries like the Netherlands are pledging $15 million worth of military aid, including contributing to air defense systems. The French too, the same. And Canada, $34 million worth of air defense systems. Now, it all sounds a lot, and it's great on paper, and I'm sure they welcome this in Kyiv. But the Ukrainian regime has had promises before from Europe, and it hasn't always been fulfilled. The Germans, for example, promised 4 air defense systems. They've provided 1. Sophisticated defense systems from the United States still have to arrive, although they're expected in November. And even then, when these defense systems are in place, the Ukrainians have to be trained on how to use it. So we're looking beyond the winter now before these air defense systems are actually in use. And is it enough? Probably not. Ukraine is a massive country. Russia is blitzing it with sophisticated cruise missiles and other rockets which defy detection sometimes. So it's a help. It's a sticking plaster, if you like, and welcomed by Kyiv, but it's not going to be enough to help them win the war, I think.
Indeed. Now, John, what's the latest from Ukraine today?
We heard from Ukraine that the city of Mykolaiv, and I featured that in my report, was hit by rockets. Now, Mykolaiv, I've visited before and filed reports for Arise News from Mykolaiv. It's not far from the front line, way down in the south, about 60 miles, 80 kilometers from Odessa. And they've been subject to rocket attacks for weeks now by the Russians. There was that dramatic rescue of an 11-year-old boy from the rubble. And I can only imagine the terror that kid felt when, the apartment block fell on top of him. In fact, he was trapped in the basement. Also, drones, the Russian drones made in Iran, bought from Iran, have been circling over the capital Kyiv and bombing power plants to knock out the electricity supplies to Kyiv, as they did in Lviv earlier this week, leaving the city, a third of the city without power supply. So this attack by Russia, not only from rockets, but also by drones, and not only on civilians and the military, but also on Ukraine's infrastructure.
Now, what can we read from last night's UN vote?
Yeah, that was interesting. They've been talking for a few days in New York, and we had the resolution calling for Russian withdrawal from the 4 occupied territories down south. 193 members of the UN, 143 voted in favor of the resolution calling on the Russians to pull out immediately. Only 4 were against. They were Russia's allies: Syria, Nicaragua, North Korea, and Belarus. Interestingly, Nigeria voted in favor of the resolution. 35 abstained, including China, India, Pakistan, and interestingly, South Africa. Now, South Africa has close ties with Russia, going back to the Soviet Union days, back in decades ago, when the ANC were fighting during the apartheid era, and the Soviet Union supplied weapons and training to ANC fighters. So a long connection there, and South Africa making it clear that it doesn't support Russia, but it's abstaining in a vote against it.
Indeed, that's a very keen observation. We've seen how Nigeria voted there. But President Putin is meeting with Turkey's President Erdogan today. What is likely to come out of that gathering?
Yeah, they're meeting in Kazakhstan. These are regular meetings that they have to do with principally with Syria, and both countries have been involved there for many years. Putin is saying that Erdogan might act as a in quotes, honest broker to try to negotiate peace between Russia and the Ukrainians. Now, whether that's got any legs or not, we'll have to wait and see. Putin also saying that he wants to help Turkey become a gas hub, given the breakdown of the gas supplies from Russia into Europe, notably Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2. So interesting, 2 allies getting together to talk about key issues to do with this conflict, and it'll be very interesting to see how things emerge from that.
All right, well, thank you for that update, and we always enjoy your insight on these issues. John Cookson, Arrive Chief Correspondent from London.